Christine Marie, and I am finding myself in very unusual circumstances tonight. I am in Waldoboro, Maine, and I was supposed to be in two places. Sometimes that happens, and I actually still don't know why. Sometimes Instagram will like make noise. But, anyways, I was in Camden, Maine tonight, which is one of the cutest little towns on the water. It was absolutely beautiful in autumn, and all the leaves are changing, and the sun is setting over the water. And I was with a good friend of mine, and we had such a good conversation, and actually I was planning to talk about that tonight, and I ended up having an experience that I did not expect this evening. I went to my Airbnb. It was this off the grid cabin, and I was really excited to sleep out in the woods and honestly just kind of bundle up under comforters and just be cozy out in the cabin. And arriving, they told me it was just a really weird experience. And before I could just kind of share the story, what we're going to talk about tonight is the thing that we all secretly really want, the thing that we are all really searching for, the thing that frankly is really missing in us. And tonight, by way of this experience, it really manifested itself. And I think it helped me put into words something that I've never been able to describe. So kind of my lesson in all of this is that everything has good and everything has purpose in it, even when it's 8:30 at night, 9 o'clock at night, and you're driving around Maine and keep losing power and you can't connect you can't connect your phone to call an inn or a hotel. So with that, I'm going to tell you what happened and that thing that we all are really, really looking for that became really clear to me. I left dinner and headed to the cabin, and beforehand they were like, "Hey, what time are you going to check in? We want to show you how to turn on the heater." No problem. I'll be there between 7:30 and 8. They say, "Okay." And then after they confirmed it, I didn't speak to them until I was leaving. I was leaving the Camden area around 7:30, and so I said, "Hey, I'll be there in about 15 minutes." And then I arrive and I sit outside and I can see people walking around inside because the cabin is like an offshoot of this person's property, way hidden in the back. And when I have camped Maine before, that's typically how a lot of these Airbnb properties work. And so they're there, I can see them all inside their house, and then they can see my car, and I see somebody come outside, and I'm like ready to see them. And after about 7 to 8 minutes, I realize that they're not coming. So I text them and I say, "I'm here." And then I continue to wait. And then I just pull up the instructions on my phone because, no problem, I can do without heating. And so I plan to go back to the cabin, but then they send me this note, which was interesting. They say, let me pull it up just to be really clear. They said, "Okay." I said, "Here." And around 8 minutes later, they say, "Okay, we were hoping folks would arrive before dark, finishing dinner with my son, then can go up and show you the heater. It heats up quick." And when I read that, it gave me a pause because they never once mentioned that they were hoping to show me the place before dark, because I told them I would be there between 7:30 and 8, which is after dark. And they said, okay, they affirmed it. So something in me kind of almost like this little warning bell, because for any of you who have been in a relationship in the past where your experience isn't actually it's challenged by way of the other person's experience. So there's a dissonance between your experience and then what they say to you. So now, anytime that happens for me in relationships, immediately a red flag goes up. Immediately, it's almost like my hackles raise. Hackles are the hairs that stand on the back of a dog's neck when they get sense danger. And so, because of different relationships in the past for me, I would shut down my intuition and sit with the other person in their experience at the sake and at the cost of what I knew was true, at the sake and the cost of my own experience. And so over the last 3 years, I've really been working to recover my sense of intuition and really honor that. But in so doing, I'm hyper aware when someone's words is not I guess you could say their words are not matching the experience. And so I thought that was interesting, and I didn't say anything, but I kind of noted it. And then I walk into the cabin. It's pitch dark everywhere, and I walk in, and the light doesn't work. I flip on the light switch, and the electricity isn't on, and I was like, given their response, given that, it's been about 15 minutes since I've been here and there's still nothing, it's 8 o'clock. I recognized on my drive over, I was like, I need to do my knowing show. What are we going to talk about? And so I was kind of like planning my knowing show. And I knew one other thing about the property was that I knew that doing the show in the cabin, I would actually need to leave and make sure it uploaded after. So there were already some complications. And I just knew intuitively, back to the intuition, I knew intuitively at that moment that I should leave. And so I get in the car, the electricity isn't working. And so I message them and I'm like, hey, the electricity isn't working. No need to come to the cabin, enjoy your dinner. And shortly thereafter, this is what I said. I said, I headed out, the electricity isn't working, enjoy dinner. They said, did you read that the cabin is off-grid, rustic with no electricity? That's clearly laid out in the title and description. Are you saying you're not staying the night? And what's really interesting is that in hearing that, as I'm driving literally through the back roads of Maine, and my signal keeps getting lost, and I'm on the phone trying to call different places, and my dear man is on the phone with me trying to find places too, and it just keeps getting later and later, and I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going. So I'm just starting to drive towards the Boston airport because that's where I'm flying out tomorrow. And y'all, it was so wild. I finally found a place. And so as I was driving to where I am now, I'm at this, I'm going to show you around in a minute. I'm in this little motel. It's so funny. I'll show it to you in a second. But as I was driving, I remembered this phrase that this is for me. Everything that's happening right now is for me. There's like a divine appointment here, if I so choose to view the world that way, operate that way, and then look for something in all of this, right? Because if I say that I believe it, I need to have my actions align with it. And so I really started looking and thinking, why is this for me? And I just had this realization that at the end of the day, and actually I wrote it down because it really meant so much to me. Like, it hit me so much. We want to be affirmed. That's why we spend so much time trying to justify our experience. I literally just found myself looking for someone to say, you know what? That wasn't right. What happened? And actually I checked the description, and no electricity wasn't mentioned anywhere. They said that there'd be heater. They said that there'd be Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? Like all the things that allude to there being electricity. So they had some unhealthy elements to their initial encounter with me. My intuition was raised and kind of gave a red flag saying, hey, watch out. And then when this happened, they're coming back and saying, did you not read it? And it's so funny. I felt like, as I was thinking about this, why did this bother me? Why does this feel off? I felt like almost like this little girl in me, like waving my hand, being like, no, I have a good reason. I'm not crazy. And what I realized in that moment is that for every single one of us, we just want to be affirmed that we're not crazy, that our experience is valid. And then I just thought of how many conflicts are really just you and me sitting across the table from each other being like, no, but, hear my side. And we don't really hear the other person, because imagine if, man, my partner's pissed off about something and I'm like, I really hate that happened. I'm so sorry that happened. And, I really want to take onus. I need to tell you my experience too. Like, because I actually had a really hard time as well. And Jesse, I saw, yes, Jesse, that is exactly right. Jesse on Instagram says, we have to affirm ourselves. Y'all, that is our job. So that even if my partner sitting across from me says, I disagree with you, I think you're wrong, that's not my experience, I can almost like tend to that little girl in me that for all those years, guys, it starts when we're 2 years old. A friend of mine, I was working with him in the Known Founder, and we were doing a whole weekend intensive, really diving into his brand, diving into who are you? You know, asking those hard questions and like, what's the vision for your life and what are you called to? And he remembered something at 18 months old, trying to communicate something and being misunderstood. We spend our lives trying to communicate what is important to us. We're trying to communicate what we value. We're trying to be understood. And it's like the human language. Someone said this to me one time, and actually this is in my book. I forgot about this. I love this analogy. She said, the words that come out of my mouth, from the time that they come out of my mouth and they hit my husband's ears, they've twisted. He now hears what I'm saying through his experience, through his lens. And so my words don't even hold the integrity of what came out of my mouth because his experience changes it. And y'all, it's just wild how we have to be our own caretakers because no one else will ever truly understand, one, what we're really trying to convey, and two, our own experience. Like I actually, it's, man, a full circle moment. This morning in vertical alignment, I was sitting there and I was praying, and I just had this overwhelming sense. We have to be our own caretakers because no one else knows what we've been through. And I just saw these like flashes in my mind's eye of moment after moment of just sitting in the grief or being angry driving and sleeping alone after my husband left, and just all these moments. And this weekend my sister is celebrating, or we're celebrating the life of my brother-in-law who was killed 11 years ago on Sunday, October 5th. And then next week, my cousin is celebrating the life of her husband who left 6 children behind as a result of COVID. Y'all, every single aspect of pain especially warrants us to be the parents to ourselves that our parents, for hopefully many of us, really did love us, but they didn't know how to understand us. And so we cultivated this grasping and this sense of desperation over trying to be heard, so that when we're in conflict with our partner, it's this little kid in us that's coming out. Oh gosh, I'll just say it. I had a moment with my man a couple weeks ago where we were sitting in the car. My problem is that I will be so calm, so good, so empathetic, and just be good. And then all of a sudden I'm like, how dare you? And I'll just get so angry because I'm not kind of tending to myself and setting my own experience along the way. But this moment with him particularly, I almost felt out of control of my own body. I literally, I've never done this before. I felt horrified. He was sitting there talking. We were sitting, so I'm kind of like half angled to him, and he says something. And I'm like, and I just punch him in the shoulder, and it wasn't hard, but the fact that I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, and I said, how dare you, as I like punched him. And again, to defend myself, it was not hard, but y'all, I felt little Christene coming out. I felt this little kid in me. That's probably why it wasn't very hard, is because she's not that strong. It was just, man, it was watching this little kid come alive. And so then the question is, are we tending to that little child so that in the moments of conflict, they feel safe with us? Ooh, even as I say that, guys, that's the thing. That's the thing. Are we tending to ourselves? Jesse says, sitting in the aloneness. Are we sitting alone with ourselves? Are we allowing ourselves to feel what we need to feel to be able to get to the other side? Think of emotions as a tunnel. We have to move through the emotions to get to the other side of it. And then we can take the right action predicated in alignment with our ideal, rather than action predicated in a half processed emotion or a suppressed emotion that's the one actually in the driver's seat. And so as I was driving here, I just had that realization that really, when we get upset, like I'm driving here and I'm like, why is this random person having an impact on me? And it was subtle, it was very quiet, but it was kind of festering in me. I could just tell there was this angst over, we both agreed that I would show up between 7:30 and 8. Why are you pretending like that's not the case? And part of me wants to go and justify myself. Part of me wants to explain. Part of me wants to defend. Part of me wants to stand up for justice, in this very small, benign situation. But can I let go of their perception of me, their words that might be attacking of me, and let them be? And my sister and I, it's again, I love just the full circle of this. My sister and I were on the phone this morning. We'll get on a frequent basis, on a daily basis, as much as we can, and pray together and just talk about life and how can I support you? What do you need? And we were talking this morning about being able to let somebody else sit in their experience of complaining or just anger or just negativity effectively. And I can have empathy doesn't always mean that we have to go sit with them. Sometimes it's not empathy is not the right approach. Sometimes it's actually, I'm going to lead by example rather than leading with empathy. And I think that that's a distinction, frankly, that I need to work on, because the ability to truly let somebody else be over there and let them have their experience, be like, I really love you. And I'm not going to enter into the mess that you're in right now. Like I can't, especially let's say that person is really fearful over what's going to happen tomorrow at tomorrow's event. This is all pretend. Let's say someone is freaking out about tomorrow and you're like, I hear what you're saying, and I really have faith that it's going to be fine. I've done the work. We've got a plan. And for all of those little things that we don't know what's going to happen yet, um, each one of those little things are logistics that can only be handled on the day of. And I hear how upset you are, and I hear how afraid you are. I'm not going to enter into that emotional space with you, because here's the thing. If we feel loved when our partner matches our energy, that is a dangerous situation. And frankly, I've seen this happen with myself, with other people. It's like, well, if you get angry along with me, it proves to me that you care. So y'all, what then? The question, so if we can agree on this baseline of each one of us is trying to prove our point, each one of us just wants somebody to validate our experience. Because once we feel seen and heard, there's almost this sense of, there's a sense of relief. I physically feel this, like, oh, okay. Like that's a way. Okay. I'm not crazy. That whole not crazy thing is very real. Jesse just said, it's hard for me to not defend myself given that then evangelical upbringing and my aversion to the feelings associated with people being unhappy with me. Oh my gosh. I resonate with that so much. Jesse, I think you and I both attended the same church. That whole thing of people not being happy with me. My sister and I were talking about this very thing this morning. Like when I know. So that text that I received from this, Jesse, I think that's exactly what it is. The text I received from the Airbnb host was effectively saying that they weren't happy with me. So it was a dissonance from my experience, and it was an emotional one. There was an emotional charge. And here's another aspect too. I actually don't know if they had an emotional charge there. I feel the emotional charge because I want everyone to be happy with me. And so there's this dance of, man, if we can realize the light and the shadow there. The light, when we want people to feel joy and cared for and provided for and loved on when we're with them, man, that is beautiful. It is literally God, the manifestation of God, that would be the case. That, man, when people are in our presence, we bring light and love and illuminate them. But then the shadow of that, what's the shadow of that is codependency. It's doing things for the sake of other people's reaction. It's really, then I'm not okay if you're not okay. And I have seen this play out in my life in so many different ways. The very first time that I really saw it in action, of my emotional state tied to someone else's emotional state, my dad, I was at my parents' house. I was about to leave for New York. and my dad and mom were heading out the door. And I heard my dad say, ouch. I think he stubbed his toe. And my mom said, oh, are you okay? And in my mind, I thought, I'm so proud of her for not saying I'm sorry. And I was like, what is that? Why should she apologize for him getting hurt? But then that's when I realized that I actually assume responsibility for their emotional well-being. So if they're not happy, it's my fault. So when they said we prefer for guests to show up before dark, immediately I'm like, oh, I did something wrong. I misbehaved. And y'all, that's the little kid in us who's wanting to perform. And so then the question is, why? Why are we feeling the need to perform? Well, if our security, that is primal instincts of security in childhood, is yes, food and shelter and water, basic needs. But y'all, the basic need also for a child's development is love. There has been so much neurological study done that shows the cognitive development in the child's brain and body when they do not have love and a stability in terms of a caregiver and the nurture that comes with that versus when they do. So the do and the don't of nurture and stability in love giving is dramatic in the output of the child. And so we are still chasing that. We're still chasing that today for so long as we do not give it to ourselves. So at the end of the day, my radical responsibility is to, if I see a text like that, honestly, what I should have done, my hackles were raised, but I didn't go inward. It was almost like I got on high alert. Oh, this is so interesting as I think about this. My 4F, so flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. So my main F that comes out is fawn. That's how I typically tend to engage in relationships when there's conflict, is kind of doting or like, what can I do to make you feel better? And so then here's the thing, if I don't actually, let me back up before I say that. What I should have done in that moment when I felt my hackles raise, that's a sign to stop, slow down, lean in, and ask why. Why did I feel that weird sensation? Why did I suddenly feel unsafe? Not in terms of danger, but on an emotional level. My triggers were activated, warning me of something. And so I recognized the warning, but I didn't trace the roots. Y'all, we have to trace the roots of every single warning down to their genesis to understand why. Otherwise, we're going to be fighting the wrong villain. We're going to be fighting somebody else. We're going to be fighting our partner. We're going to be staying up and just feeling angsty over this person. And then here's the other thing. We can end up fighting ourselves. We can end up fighting that little child who's issuing that warning sign because they know the danger's coming. But if we instead were to stop and actually pay attention to the child in us, unlike how we experienced it in childhood, how we, adults generally acted, there's an element of, you're to be seen and not heard. The different mantras. Someone I was talking to said that their mom said, you better stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. So guys, what are those narratives that our parents told us growing up that fundamentally shaped the way that we view an emotional reaction that is actually a warning sign that something is about to go down? Because if we don't pay attention, we'll end up attacking somebody else or attacking ourselves rather than actually giving ourselves the tender love and care that we need, because there's something there for us. So at the end of the day, if we learn to sit and affirm our own experience, we won't be so desperate for someone else to affirm it. And then we can hear theirs. We can actually articulate with clarity the why behind the manifestation of, let's say, the anger. Guys, thank you so much for joining tonight, Jesse. It was good to see you. I'm going to show you my little place. It's this little motel. So thank God. So I left the Airbnb. This is my little motel. They have these like fun, cute little picture. Moody's Diner. I guess that's Moody. Look, it's Percy Moody. 1980. Oh, he's so cute. I love that. And then this is the diner, and I get a diner credit. So this is all working out so beautifully. I don't hope you can see. I can't really see what I'm pointing at. Okay. I think I'm back. Thank you all for joining tonight. I appreciate you guys, and thank you, Jesse, again for your input. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I will see you all